Welcome to Accommodate This. Today I'm going to talk about a pet peeve of mine. Hear me out. I didn't say I'd like to talk about it because the topic is quite upsetting for me as well. But it's one of those things that I think we need to talk about more than we do, which is why we're here. And fair warning, I'm already a bit worked up, so I'm probably going to continue to struggle to remain calm throughout this whole video. It's nothing personal against any specific person, it's just how much this topic upsets me. But we've got to rip off the band-aid at some point, so here we go. I absolutely hate the question, how are you?
That's all. That's all.
I know, you're probably thinking, David, why do you have to be so negative all the time? And I get it. My intention is not to simply complain, but to ask for help. Now, I've said this before, that this world was not designed for autistic people. I've said it, other autistic people have said it.
It is known.
It is known.
But what does that actually mean? I feel like providing a bit more context would help people understand this concept on a much deeper level. So in today's video, I'm going to discuss how this one small example of social discourse proves that the world was not designed for autistics. In fact, I advocate for eliminating the practice of asking this question in most situations, because asking people how they are is intrusive, often pointless, and sometimes it's quite ableist. And unless you're my doctor or you're offering to help, it's none of your business, and you shouldn't ask in the first place. Asking how are you is culturally considered good manners in the United States. It's an example of Phatic language, which is speech that's intended for social bonding rather than conveying an illicit message. It's like a modern form of how do you do, which was simply answered in kind. But asking how are you is not a part of every culture. For example, some cultures consider it an insincere practice. I do. Although it has been kept alive in the United States, I think it's high time that we got rid of it. After all, it's become empty and rote. It's just one more relic of a dying era, and we've already seen so many courtesies go by the wayside, such as men walking on the street side of a sidewalk to shield women from mud splatters caused by passing wagons. Wiping your hands on the tablecloth or using it as a napkin. Yes, this was once considered good manners, though spitting or wiping your nose on a tablecloth was never appropriate. Dueling to sort out your conflicts, or changing conversational partners after each course during a dinner party. None of these are practiced today, but they were still considered good manners back when they were. But when people don't really care and are just saying, how are you, out of habit, then what is the value of continuing such a mindless practice? I know some people ask, how are you, hoping you'll ask them back. But why not simply be direct about it? Why play games and hint at your intentions like that? I understand being shy or timid, but to then expect everyone to continue the practice if someone might, some of the time, want to be asked again, maybe, you realize the if is carrying a lot of weight, that maybe it's time we just let it go and learn to communicate with one another openly, honestly, and without taking offense. Now, some people may say asking how are you is a way to spread joy, because it's nice to hear when someone else is doing well, even if it's a stranger. Oh, nice try, Marie Antoinette. Not everyone is living a joyous life. I know you're not interested in the truth. You only want to hear about the good things. You aren't interested in my struggles with irregular bowel movements, or how upset I am about living under an authoritarian regime, or how sad I am that my cat died. No, I have to sugarcoat all my answers so you can continue believing all is well if we pretend it is, right? Do you mean I either have to make up a response on the fly, fake my answer, or completely deny reality just so you feel a glimmer of hope? I hate to break it to you, but that's just fantasy. And I'm not here to stroke your ego. Besides, for the autistic people in your life, it's ableist to expect such a thing because you are essentially asking us to mask our true feelings for the sake of your own comfort. If you don't really want to know, don't ask us. And if you ask us, don't get upset when we're honest. You're teaching us that our realities are too dreadful for you to handle, but instead of actually helping, you'd rather we just sweep it under the rug. I hate this question, and I often resent it when people ask it of me. How are you? How dare you? Where do you get the audacity?
I hate sunshine. I hate horrible, wholesome sunshine. I hate it. I hate it. I hate.
Let's break this question down into its most basic function, a conversation starter. But not just any conversation starter. It's a specific conversation that was scripted by some ancient person who knows how long ago. And society collectively decided it should be a precursor to your first conversation with every person on any given day. It was invented by people who sat at the table with 5 different forks at every plate, who ate by candlelight and didn't watch television and thought the waltz was provocative. Well, why are we continuing this ritual? And why, oh why, are we perpetuating the idea that it is good manners to both ask such intruding questions while expecting superficial, cookie-cutter answers? What value does this question actually add to a conversation? This is particularly irritating in a workplace because you see the same people day in and day out. You're all there to earn modest pay for an honest day's work. You aren't there to make friends. It's not a bar. Unless, of course, you work in a bar, because then it is a bar. But you know what I mean. Meeting a perfect stranger is another matter entirely. But asking the same people every day how they're doing is at the very least tedious and boring. And expecting the same cookie cutter answers from everyone who responds to that question, it feels like even more of a waste of time. Besides, it's also nobody's business. It's a personal question. Didn't your parents teach you that it's rude to pry into people's personal lives? Didn't your employer say, hey, no personal talking on company time? Unless I'm asking for help with work-related tasks, the question is irrelevant at work. And if I am asking for help with a work-related task, it would be more appropriate to simply ask for help, not to qualify it with a telling of your life story. I mean, I had a coworker that once described saying, "How are you?" was a way to win positive points with others, thereby earning their trust and cooperation in the future. In a way, it's a networking strategy. And despite it being so irritating of a question for me, making that small sacrifice now has a huge payout in future interactions. Okay. To me, that sounds like I need to bribe people just so they will be nice. And it makes even less sense in a work environment where we are expected to cooperate with one another. We are on the same team. But somehow asking, how are you, is some form of currency that funds the kindness economy, and a lack of those funds results in kindness poverty. And if you haven't built up enough funds by asking this ridiculous question, you don't deserve kindness and cooperation? Despite the fact that your employment agreement obligates you to cooperate with your coworkers, somehow this imaginary kindness economy permeates and overrules everything else? I don't get it. Why is this intrusive, superficial, ableist question considered to be a form of kindness? Why aren't people just kind all the time? Why aren't people cooperative and trying to do their best all the time? To me, it sounds like an entirely unnecessary game. But even if you refuse to play it, you're pulled into it anyway because people will turn on you for not playing along. Nothing screams privilege louder than when an autistic person resists doing their job because you didn't ask them how they were 3 weeks ago. What a world they must live in, I swear. Some people may say not to make such a big deal out of it. It's simply agreeing to acknowledge the person that you're speaking to. But if that were the case, hello would work just as well. And yet there have been many times in my life when I skipped that question and the other person acted like I stabbed them in the chest. Who's really overacting when that happens? To me, skipping such conversational foreplay is no worse than skipping the credits at the beginning of a TV show. Let's just get to the point. Besides, it doesn't always make practical sense to ask it. For example, if your house is burning down and you've got to wake up the rest of your family, are you really going to waste precious time asking Sally if she had pleasant dreams? No, you're going to wake them up by being as loud and demanding as you possibly can, screaming at them to get to safety like a drill sergeant. That may be an exaggeration, but my point is there's some unspoken threshold where it ultimately doesn't matter in the larger scheme of things. And when someone freaks out on me for not asking how they are, I have to wonder what privileged life they live to treat this as such a horrible violation. At most, it should be a social faux pas, but I've been treated like I just committed a felony. In reality, there are so many things that are more important than asking someone how they are and having them respond, fine, before getting to your point. Some may say that asking how are you is a way to offer help if help is needed. It's a way of saying, I'm open to provide help if you need it. And that may be true in very rare cases. For a majority of the time, that's not the case. In fact, any hint of needing help tends to scare people away. It's a way for the person asking to feel like they're being helpful without actually having to do anything. But once you do ask for help, they cower and scatter. I would just rather they not pretend. I've been told that asking how are you can be about creating a safe environment by establishing a foundation of trust. But that can't be true when you consider they're most likely not expecting an honest answer. And if you aren't interested in the truth, why bother asking it in the first place? How does that build trust? It makes me think of birds and their intricate mating dances. Some male birds, when they're looking for a hot piece of cloaca, do a mating dance to entice a female of their species to consider them as a good candidate for mating. It's treated like it's an essential part of successfully passing on their genes, but it's not. All that matters is getting the sperm to fertilize the egg. Everything else is fawning, feathers, and fancy footwork. None of the pomp and ceremony are necessary for reproduction, but birds have evolved with the instincts to go through the whole commotion. Granted, we are no more evolved than modern birds, but asking how are you is not instinctual in humans. It's taught and fundamentally non-essential for reproduction, or most human interaction. I mentioned earlier how asking how are you is not only pointless, it's ableist. Here's how. Many autistics, including myself, struggle with alexithymia, which makes it difficult to assess how we feel at any given moment. It can take tremendous processing power for me to analyze what I may be feeling, what those feelings mean, how to describe them, and how to determine if it's something anyone else wants or needs to know. Add on to that the expectation that my answer needs to be framed in a positive light to make it palatable for others, and it becomes a tremendously difficult request for my brain to fulfill. And yet, we are expected to provide an immediate response, often with a cookie-cutter answer that makes the whole interaction feel like a charade. Meanwhile, my innate sense of honesty and my need for authenticity are challenged every time because I know deep down that the person asking me doesn't really care or is not prepared to accept an honest answer anyways. So, was the point of the whole interaction intended to remind me how little I actually matter, just so someone else can continue living in delusion? Some may say I'm overthinking it, and to that I'd say they're underthinking it. After all, people usually ask, "How are you?" automatically, like they never gave it a second thought. And that's a problem for me because it proves my point. It underscores that they really don't care. And yet, if I ignore the question or insist on skipping it altogether, suddenly it's like I'm cutting off their finger. But why? What damage is being done by simply eliminating the tradition of asking, "How are you?" all the time? What are they missing out on? How can something performed so casually hold any level of value, especially enough to warrant strong feelings of betrayal for not asking? If you know, please tell me in the comments, because it really makes no sense to me. To me, it feels like it's a bigger betrayal to ask and not really care about a real answer, or to be offended by a real answer. And for some reason, my autistic brain still thinks that it might make a difference if people knew how much I really struggle to answer that question. If they knew the toll it takes on me to expend tremendous amounts of mental energy to give them an honest answer, or to deny my need of authenticity, would they think twice about asking me? If they really only asked, "How are you?" when they really wanted to know, wouldn't it be more meaningful and build a stronger connection between people? Now, this is just one way that the current world was not designed for people like me. I struggle to reconcile the casual nature of asking, "How are you?" with my very real and very personal needs for truth and authenticity. It's a social ritual that has no good ending for me because I either have to mask or face public ridicule for not complying. And I may be aging myself when I say this, but this is just the top of the iceberg. Social media has only made matters worse because it gives people the freedom to casually say whatever they want without considering the consequences. You might be thinking, "David, isn't that what you're doing right now?" And I'd say, "No, it's not. I'm being very thoughtful about this, considering it from multiple angles. And I honestly can't understand why we perpetuate these kind of social rituals. If we even gave it a modicum of thought, we would see how degrading of a practice it is. And if we cared at all, we'd only ask someone how they're doing if we actually were interested in standing with them for support. Now, if it were up to me, we would all agree to be less casual with this question and show more compassion toward those we ask. And I hope that you will help by putting more thought into what you say to someone else and how it might impact them. Don't just go by rote. Engage with people around you authentically and with sincerity. And I promise you, it can only result in more meaningful relationships and a world that is more accommodating for us all. And that's not negative, is it? If you enjoyed this video, please comment, like, and subscribe to see more content like this, or click on the video here to continue watching.